Hi there, and welcome to this HTTP control panel tutorial. And in this HTTP control panel tutorial, we're going to install HTTP on Ubuntu 24 LTS, which is the latest Ubuntu LTS version, which will be supported by Ubuntu up to the year 2025 and will receive further maintenance updates up to the year 2030. So that's why you should always use an LTS, long-term supported Ubuntu versions for your server. We're going to install HTTP as Nginx and PHP FPM. That's the setup we're going to use. We're not going to install Apache, so just know that in advance. And then you're going to see how you can add multiple websites on that HTTP server. So the tools that we're going to need for this tutorial: number one, we're going to use Contabo as our VPS of choice. So to get to Contabo, you can just use my link and you can use Bizanosa, bizanosa.com/Contabo. And this is going to take you to Contabo VPS, where you can look at the different offers that are available. We're going to need to set up our server, and as I said, we're going to use Ubuntu 24, so we're going to need to set it up. And the post that we're going to use to set it up, you can find that on my website, and the link will be in the description. But if it is not there, you can just search for it on Google or Bing. Just search for Bizanosa Ubuntu server setup. So Bizanosa is my website name, and this is the one, Ubuntu 20 initial server setup on a VPS. And this is a post that I'm going to use to set up my server. So as I said, we're going to use Ubuntu 20.04. So we're going to use this to set up Ubuntu 20.04. And the things we're going to do are here. Everything we're going to do is listed here. So just follow along with me and everything is going to be clear for you. But just note that I'm not going to use Party. So that's the next tool. The next tool we're going to use, we're not going to use Party. We're going to use Git Bash, and you can get Git Bash for free on Google. So just search for Git, download Git, and you download it from this website, Git SCM. We're going to use Git Bash. So I'm on Windows, that's why I have to install Git Bash. If you're following along on Mac or on Ubuntu, then you can just use the terminal. Instead of having to install Git, you can use terminal. But if you want to follow along, you can still install it. You can see you can install Git for Linux and even Mac. Now, if you don't have it and you are on Windows, just click there and download it, install it, and it's going to come with everything you need. It's going to come with Git Bash, Git GUI, and Git CMD, but we only need Git Bash. So once it's downloaded, make sure you install it, and we will start in the next video, and we're going to start by setting up our server on Contabo. I will see you in that next video when we set up our Contabo server. Hi, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to set up our Contabo server. We're going to create the account. If you want to get to this page on Contabo, just go to bizanosa.com/Contabo, and the link is in the description. I will choose this option. You can choose any option that you want. You can even choose any of these other servers. You can use any of this dedicated server or virtual dedicated server, whichever one you want to use. Go ahead and try it. Now for me, I want to try it with this, and this is the one that I'm going to use. I will just click there on select. These are the settings you're going to get. Now, initial contract period, there you can choose whichever you want. The region, just note that with the region, the monthly price is going to vary. So the monthly charge for your server is going to vary based on the location of the server. If I choose a data center in the United States, you can see the price, the monthly price is going to increase by that. If I choose one in Asia, the price is going to increase by $3. So just choose one that is most appropriate for you and your visitors. We have chosen this region of Germany. The next option is we need to choose an operating system. Okay, look at all the operating systems that are available here, and you can choose whichever one you want to use. For me, I want to use Ubuntu, but the best option for Ubuntu, if you don't want to use Ubuntu, you can always use Debian. If this was my server, I would definitely be using Debian, but I'm just using Ubuntu because I know most people prefer to use it, and that's why I want to use it here. You can see the Linux server operating systems that I recommend. The link will be in the description. Now I will start with Ubuntu 20.04 and always use an LTS version. If your VPS doesn't have 20.04, then just use the latest, the previous one, which is 1804. But of course, you should probably use the latest LTS version of Ubuntu. And so we're going to use 2004, which is the latest LTS version. And then this, we're going to leave that as it is. IP, you can add another IP. If you want to add an additional IP, it will be $4 a month. So your monthly charges will also increase by that based on the IP addresses that you add. So we're going to choose only one IP address. And then backup space, if you want to add backup, you can do that, and the prices are there. If you want your server to be managed by Contabo, you can see that's the monthly price. You can monitor your server and see how it's performing. If anything is happening that you don't want, any resources are being overused, you will get alerts for that. And you can use SSL if you want to add SSL, but please don't bother with this because you're going to install a control panel, and with most control panel nowadays you'll get Let's Encrypt, which is already set up in most control panels. So don't worry about SSL. You can set that up using the free control panel that we're going to install. And then setup, if you want to fast track the setup, you can choose this. This is going to make sure that your account is set up faster, but who cares, right? We are patient, we'll wait. And then how many servers do you want to set up? If you want multiple servers, you can choose the number of servers that you want to set up. Maybe you want to set up multiple, you can do that there. So that's pretty much it. Let me just confirm that everything is as I chose it. So Ubuntu there, I'll just go next. So you can see I will need to log in. So I already have an account with Contabo. If you don't have an account, just go ahead and create yours. And if they ask you for any details to verify your identity, just send them something. You can send them anything that has your actual physical address on it, like a billing, any form of billing that you have, water bill or an electric bill. You can send that. You can just scan it and send it, and it will be used to verify your identity. Private, individual, let's forget about that. I want to log in. I'm already a customer. So if you want to log in, in future, if you want to log into Contabo, you can just go to my.contabo.com. So let's come in here and do my.contabo.com. Enter. And that's going to redirect you to the login page for Contabo. So when you're here, you can just click here, log in here if you're already a customer. I don't remember my password. I'm going to reset mine here. So just log in and we'll meet in the next screen. Log in here. Let's see. So once I reset my password, let me come back and log in here. Okay, so I'm logged in. If you have a coupon code, just click there and add one. That's it. You'll see the amount you should pay, and I will just order and pay. I will just wait for them to finish provisioning this. It's provisioned. What's going to happen is you're going to get all the details that you need to log into your server. You're going to receive them in your email. Everything that you need will be sent to your email. And before this happens, let's say your account is new, what they will need, or what they may need, is some kind of document just to prove yourself. Okay, so as I said, if they ask you for anything to prove your physical address, just send any kind of billing. You can send an electric bill, water bill, any kind of bill that has your physical address on it, and they will use that to verify you. And as soon as you're verified, they will create your account and they will create your server, and all the details will be sent to you. If you don't want to deal with all this verification stuff, just choose a VPS in America. You can choose something like Vultra. That's one that I use a lot, and I can definitely recommend them. They have very fast servers, even though their offers are not as good as Contabo. So let's just wait and see if it's going to get provisioned for me as soon as possible. As soon as you log into your Contabo account, once they have sent you all the details, you'll see your servers here. Any VPSs that you have, any services that you have with Contabo, you can just click there and you'll see the details for all the servers listed. And you can also look at the VPSs that you have right there. They will be listed here. If you did choose VDS, then you can look at that as well. Right now, there isn't much I can do. Therefore, I'm just going to wait for an email from Contabo, and once it comes, we can begin setting up the server in the next video. So what I'm waiting for is an IP address, a root user, and a password. So once all that is set up for me, I can start setting up my server. And as I said, we're going to use this post to set up our server. Okay, so the link for this will be in the description. If it's not there, just remind me and I will add it, or you can just go to Google or Bing and search for Bizanosa Ubuntu server setup, and you're going to find this post. Okay, so for me, I'm going to use git bash to set up my server instead of using party. Okay, you can see this is party. I'm not going to use party. I'm going to use git bash. So you can just use terminal if you're on Mac, and you can use terminal as well if you are on Linux. So I will see you in the next video when we start setting up the server. I'm just waiting for the details from Contabo. All the details I need will be sent to my email as soon as the server is set up for me. So if you don't want to deal with all this waiting process from Contabo, you can use a different VPS, and American VPSs usually don't have this wait period. An example is DigitalOcean, Vultr. I've used both, and you can use them if you want to. If you want to set up a server just to try something, go ahead and use Vultr or DigitalOcean, but I do recommend Vultr because I used them for over 4 years and I still use them to this day. So I can definitely vouch for Vultr. Very reliable, very fast servers as well. It's entirely up to you to use whichever you want, but you can also see the VPSs that I recommend. I will leave the link in the description. Let's continue in the next video. So I've just received all the login data for my Contabo server. So what I got are the IP address, server type, the VNC, IP, and port. So VNC can be used to access your server remotely, and then the VNC password as well. And then you're going to get the username, and the username by default is root, and you're going to get a password for the root user and the type of operating system that you set up. You're going to get all of this in your Contabo first email. So if your account is new, you're also going to get your Contabo login details, and you can use that to log into your Contabo dashboard. We want to log into our server, and now that we have all the details, we can do that. We are interested in VPS control because we did set up a VPS. If you don't know which IP address you're working with or which is which, just go to your email address and look at the IP address that has been sent there. So you'll see the operating system, and if you are not sure, you can also come here under services. All right, so if you want to log into your server, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you restart your server. So the server will be restarted, and as soon as you do that, give it some time and just copy this, our IP address. We have the IP address, we have the user, our user is root, and we have the password that was sent for root, and you can find that in your Contabo email. To log in, so on Windows, I'm going to use git bash. You can download git bash for free and install it. If you are on a Mac or Linux, you can use terminal to follow along. So just search for git. If you're on Windows, that is, search for git, download, and then click on that. You want to download it for Windows. Since you're on Windows, you're probably following along on Windows. Choose Windows and install it. And once you install it, it's going to come with everything we need. And we're going to use git bash for this tutorial. Once you install it, just come back to Windows and then search for git. We want to work with git bash. You can see there's git GUI and there's git cmd, but I only want to use git bash. To log in, type SSH, and the user is root at the IP address. So with this, I think you can paste. Let's see how you can paste. That is at root at, and then you can paste, and you can do shift insert to paste. And as soon as I do that, it's going to ask me for the password. And you can see it's asking me to authorize this into my hosts file. I'm going to type yes to affirm that, and it will be added to my hosts file. So it will be a known host on my computer, and I can access it without any problems. We need to add the password, so you can paste it in here by doing shift insert. If you just do that, you can paste using shift insert, yes. And you won't see the password as you type it in or as you paste it in. So just press enter, and if it is correct, you should be logged into your server. There we go. That's how to log into your Contabo server. Of course, the first thing you want to do is you want to update your server. So since we are still using root, I can just do apt update, enter. Let's see if there are any updates. All right, so you can see 4 packages can be upgraded. So let's do apt upgrade to upgrade, enter. Then y, enter. So just let it update, and that will be pretty much it. So you've seen how you can set up your Ubuntu server on Contabo and then log into your Ubuntu server VPS if you want to start setting it up. So just remember that we are going to start using this post to set up our server. So there we go, our updates are done. If you want to log out of your server, you can just do exit, and that's going to log you out of your server. Okay, so let's continue in the next video. And in the next video, what I want us to do is I want us to come in here and we are going to create a new pseudo user. The link to this post is in the description. There we go. We're going to do this in the next video. Let's continue doing an Ubuntu initial server setup. And in this video, we're going to create a new pseudo user so that we don't have to use the root user in upcoming videos. In upcoming setup, we will not have to use the root user. To create a new user, you will just use that command. You can find the link to this post in the description. Add user, and then that's the name of the user. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Let me just copy this because I really don't want to type. I will come back to git bash. I will call my user new user 21, enter. And then you need to add a password for your new Ubuntu user. We're going to give them a strong password. Retype the password. Okay, so the password has been updated successfully. So I'm just going to press enter until I'm done with all of this. Y, and then enter. Okay, so is the information correct? Yes. So let me just clear the screen once again. So once we've created the new user, the next step is for us to make that user into a pseudo user. So we can give them pseudo privileges, and to do that, we are just going to copy this. This is going to give them pseudo privileges so that they can run the sudo command. If they need to do anything that the root user normally does, they'll just add sudo to it and they will be able to do whatever command that is. I'm going to paste in that. The user that we created was new user 21. I'll press enter, and that's going to give them the sudo privileges. Let me open up a new git bash window, and we're going to try and log in with our new user. I will open a new window of git bash. We can just do SSH that. And now instead of logging in as root, let's log in as the new user. New user 21. So what we want to do is we want to test if this user actually has the sudo privileges. Enter the password that you set up for your user. There we go. We're logged in as the new user that we've set up, and that is evident there. You can see we're logged in as that user. Now the next thing is let's try and see if we can use sudo. Now that we've given this user the sudo privileges, let's test if we can use sudo. So I'm just going to do sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y. So this is just to try and update the server, and if they can do this, then they can use sudo privileges in all the upcoming commands that we're going to do. So enter. The first time that you use the sudo command, you need to add a password for the user. So the password that you created for this user, add that. And there we go. Since I can see that this command is running without any problems, it means that we can use sudo to do everything that we need to do, and we no longer need the root user. From now on, everything that you do, use this user that you created. For me, this is a user. For you, it will definitely be different. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. In the next video, let's see what you need to do. Now, the next step is for us to set up SSH. So I'm going to set up SSH authentication using Git bash, and I'm going to use this part to do that. So I will see you in the next video when we get here. Hi, and welcome back to another video. And in this video, what I want us to do is I want us to set up SSH authentication for our Ubuntu server. So if you want to log in using SSH keys, then this video is for you. The post that I will use for this is this, and you'll find the link in the description. And even if you don't, just go to my website and you can search for this title. Okay. If you're on Windows, follow with this post. If you're using a Mac or you're using Linux, then come to this other post, generate SSH keys and use them to log into your CentOS Rel Debian server. This is for Mac and Linux users. Okay. It's a very long post, but it has everything that you'll need, to set up your server, to set up SSH authentication on your server. And as well, you can come to bizanosa.com and search for the post here, or you'll find the link in the description below. I'm going to use this since I'm on Windows, and I'm just going to scroll down up to the part where I have this thing for SSH authentication. And you can even follow along with the video. If you just click there, it's going to take you to this timestamp on YouTube where you can watch how I did it on a Debian server. Debian and Ubuntu, almost the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. It's still going to work on your Ubuntu server. Let's start. And since I'm on Windows, the first thing I want to do is I want to create a folder, and that folder is where I'm going to store my keys. If you have Git bash installed on your Windows, you're going to have this folder. If you can't see it, just enable hidden folders on your Windows and you're going to see it. I'm going to create a folder and I'm going to call it Ubuntu server so that we can just differentiate them. So all our SSH keys will be stored inside here in our root directory, and this is just the root directory. Okay, the root directory is your username. On your Windows, your username, you can get to your root directory. If you go to your C drive, if you go to your local disk drive, and then you go to users, now your username, that will be your root directory. And instead of using this link, the tilde, this just replaces that with your root directory. Okay, so that's for Git bash, and even on Linux it's like that. So if you come here under SSH, you're going to see that I do have these different folders. These are some tutorials I've done in the past. That's why they're here. We're going to create a new one for our Ubuntu, and this is where we're going to store the keys, the private and the public key for our Ubuntu server. So I'm going to call it Ubuntu server. Let me just remove the space. Okay, so once we create the folder, so we've created the folder, we're going to generate our keys, and we're going to generate it inside of the folder we've created. Okay, so to generate your keys, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to use that, and this is just the command that tells the system to generate a new key, and we're going to generate a key with this type, and the type for our key is going to be an RSA key, and the bytes for our key is going to be 4096. You can create 2048 if you want to, but we're going to do 4096, and this is just a comment. You can even leave that out if you don't want to. Okay, and then this is where we want to store our key. So we're going to store our key there. This is going to be the name of our key. Okay, two keys are going to get generated. We're going to generate a public key, and we're going to generate a private key. A public key is going to have this name plus.pub, and you're going to see it once we've generated it. So let me just copy this, and I'm going to copy that and put it, and I'm going to put it inside of this txt file so that I can just paste in things without having to type them. So SSH key gen, this, we don't need to change anything there. I'll just leave that as it is. That's just a comment. You can change. This is going to be treated as a comment. You can just add it. It can even be something that reminds you of this key. So SSH and the folder, what was the name of that folder? The name of the folder for our key was Ubuntu server. I'm going to copy that. And that's going to be the folder inside of .ssh, paste, and then we can just call it that. Okay, it doesn't really matter, right? Or we can just call it Ubuntu or whatever. This is going to be the name of our key. You can call it whatever you want. You can even remove that bit. You can call it anything that you want. You get the point. So I'm going to copy this. This is going to generate our key, and it's going to generate both keys. So let's come back into Git Bash where we already logged in. Please note that you need to do this on your local computer. You're supposed to generate your key on your local computer. The folder where you're storing your keys will be on your local computer. So generate this on your local computer. Even if you're on Linux, make sure you remember that on the other end if you're following the other post. And I can log out, or I can just open a new instance of Git Bash, and then I'm going to paste that. Remember, we're doing this on our local computer. So the name of our key, the key will be stored inside of that folder, and we're generating a 4096-bit key because Ubuntu 20.04 supports that. All right, so the key is being generated, but you're being asked for a passphrase. So make sure you enter a passphrase, which is going to be a password for your key. So every time you need to log in with your key, it won't be automatic. You'll first of all get asked to add your passphrase. So you can add that, but since I'm just doing a demo, I'm not going to add it. I'm just going to skip. But make sure you add one, and make sure it's one that you can remember, because if you forget it, you will not be able to log in, and you may have to do a few resets on your server just to make sure that you can access it once again. So I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to enter again. So once I press enter, the key will be generated, and you can see that we've generated 2 keys. Okay, if you read that, you'll see that we have 2 keys now. We have the private and the public key. The .pub key, this is a public key, and the other one is a private key. So I can just copy this and put them together with this. Once we generate the key, we need to add them to our server. We have generated our 2 keys. The next step, let's add our keys onto the server. So add the public SSH key to your Linux server. So by the way, you can use this for any server that you're using, whether you're using CentOS, you're using Red Hat, or even the new ones, Alma Linux, Rocky Linux, Debian. You can follow with this post, and it's going to work for any of those Linux servers. So let's add the private key. Let's add the public key to our server. Let me just copy this, and then we're going to replace things as we need to. Copy it here, and then I'm going to explain it. So this is going to add our public key to the server. So SSH copy ID is going to add our key to the server, and this is just telling us the identity of the key that we want to use. So the path to the public key, and then for the user that we want to add it for. So here you're going to add your IP address plus the user that you created, not for the root. Add this for the user that you created, and the user that I created was new user 21. And then I will add my IP address later. So SSH copy ID, the path to the key. Now I will copy this because I know that my key is inside here. Both my keys, if I go into that folder, Ubuntu server, you can see we have our public key and the private key. This is the one that we need to add into our server, and we're going to add it. Since this is the name of our key, I will copy, and I will replace that with this, because this is a path to our key. And then just remember that with .pub is a public key, without .pub is a private key. So let me add .pub because we need to add the public key to our server, not the private. All right, I can just copy this and add this to our server. I'm still doing this on my local computer. If you see this, this is my local computer. So I'm going to paste that. I'm going to paste. Okay, I must have copied that line. I shouldn't have. Let me come back and I will paste this. Okay, so this is going to add our key to our server. But first of all, we need to add our IP address there. Let me go to Contabo and find my IP. After adding my IP, I will just press enter, and I'll be asked to log in as this user so that I can add my key. So just remember the password for the new user that you set up, because in a moment we'll be asked to log in. So it's adding the details that we need. Okay, so we need to add the password for the user that you created, so that you can log in and add the public key. Just like that, you have now set up SSH. You've now set up SSH authentication for your Ubuntu server. You can see one key has been added, but I still need to do one thing before I try to log in. Let me come back to where I'm logged in into my server. So now I'm doing this on my server where I'm logged in. Let me just press enter to see if I'm still logged in. Okay, yeah, I'm still logged in. We want to change the permissions for the key that we've added, because on Linux, if you don't add the correct permissions, you will not be able to log in with those keys. We need to change the permission for the SSH folder, and we need to change the permission for the SSH authorized keys. Now this is where the key has been added. That's why we are changing it to root level permission. Now this is a folder. Okay, this is a file, and we can combine two. So this is like combining two commands. So we could have easily just have pasted in that, and then once this has been done, you come in and you paste that, but you want to do this in one line. So I'm just going to copy this entire thing. I will bring it back to where I'm logged in, because I need to change permissions for those two items. Press enter, and of course you need to add the sudo password, the password for this user. Since there is no error, there is no output, that means that the permissions have been changed, and you can actually look, if you can actually see the permissions for that. Okay, if you just do ls-la, you'll see the list of all the files, but I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to do that. You can just do that to see, and you'll see that the permission has been changed. Now this is very important, because if you don't do this, you'll never be able to log into your server. Okay, once you've changed the permission, this is now the next important thing. You have to change ownership for that file to the user that you created, because if you don't, that file is now owned by root, and this user needs to access that file so that they can log in. They need to access the public key that was added there. Right now it is at 600. This is a root level permission. Okay, for you to access this, you need to have sudo privileges, or you need to be root. We have to change the ownership for that file into the new user that we created, because if we don't do that, we won't be able to log in. We will never ever be able to log in. So let's just come in here and paste that in there, and I need to copy the user that I created. Make sure it's the user that you created, and where there is Joe, just replace that. So this is a group of Joe. Paste the group of Joe, and then the user of Joe, you give it the user that you created, and then of course the home directory folder, you want it to be this guy. So everything inside there, you're giving permission to this guy. You're giving ownership to this fella, this new user. Okay, you're giving ownership to the group and to the user for anything inside of this, and the public key that we added is inside of this folder. So let's go back to git bash. I will paste that in there, press enter, and as soon as I do this, now I will be able to log in via SSH. Let me open up a new git bash instance. Okay, so let's try to log into our server using the SSH keys. Okay, let me come back to this place, and we're going to test our SSH authentication by trying to log in. So I'm just going to copy this, copy that. I can explain what they do. All right, so you remember initially we logged in as SSH user at IP, and that was it. Okay, and then we were asked for a password. Right now we need to add the user server IP and an identity for a key. Okay, this tells the system that you want to log in using a key with this identity. Okay, so the identity for our key, we can just copy that right here because our key was generated as that, and I'm just going to paste that in there. Now the server IP, I will take that, copy. Let me just remove everything here, paste. So I'm going to add the IP address once I copy it from Contabo. So let me just copy all the way up to here. Copy. Now the way that I've shown you how to set up SSH is a really nice one because you can create multiple keys for different servers. If you do it any other way, you're probably going to have problems if you try to create other SSH keys. Now let's come here where we're not logged in, and I'm going to paste this. And remember, I haven't added my IP address. As soon as I add it, I will be logged into my server because I did not add a passphrase. If you added a passphrase while you are generating the key, you'll need to enter your passphrase. So let me just go back because I need to enter my IP address there. Paste. So that's the private key that we want to log in with. Remember, the public key was added on the server. The private key is now the one we're using to log in. So if I press enter, I should log in automatically. And you can see for me, I was logged in automatically because I did not add a passphrase. However, if you added a passphrase, which you probably most definitely should do, then you'll need to enter the passphrase as soon as you press enter. Now let's go back, and the last thing that I want to do is I want us to disable the root user and the password authentication, and I want to do this in this video. So I'm just going to copy this. So what we're doing here is we're going to make it such that people cannot log in with the key without our key. They have to log in using a key. So if you don't have a key, you won't be able to log in, and we're also going to disable root login. So let's do that in the SSH configuration file. So if I do that, enter. Okay, now we are here on the SSH file. What I need to look for is I need to change two things here. First of all, I need to change permit root login to no, and I need to change password authentication also to no. So let me just go and search for them. So I'm using Nano. You can see we are editing using Nano. So with Nano, I can just copy this and then I can search for it. So if you want to search for anything on Nano, just press Ctrl W, and then since I'm using Git Bash, I can just do Shift Insert to copy, to paste, I mean. And then when I press enter, it's going to look for that. And you can see permit root login has been set to yes. So we don't want root to be able to log in. So we want to set this to no. And we're going to delete yes. And then the next thing that I want us to look for is password authentication. So let me just copy password authentication from here. And we're going to search for it in the SSH config file. So once again, let's do Ctrl W, and then I'm going to do Shift Insert to paste, enter, and you can see password authentication has been commented out right there. It has been commented out, and we need to uncomment it. I'm just going to uncomment it, remove the hash sign, and that's going to uncomment it, and then we need to change the value to no, and then I will delete yes. Okay, so once I do that, I can just do Ctrl X. Now just note that there are other things you can change in this file. If you want to be really strict, you can change lots of things in these files. Okay, so maybe you want to reduce the number of times somebody can try to log in. You can reduce that there. The maximum sessions, how many people do you want to be logged in simultaneously? You can change that there. Just make sure you don't make things too strict because you might end up locking yourself out. Okay, just Google stuff before you change anything. Google stuff and see the implication of the changes you're going to make. So I'm just going to do Ctrl X to exit out of Nano, Control X and then Y to accept the changes, and then enter to exit out completely. The next thing is I need to restart SSH, and I don't want to type this, so I'm just going to copy it from here. SSH, let me use sudo service SSH restart. I will do shift insert to paste, press enter, and as soon as I do this, now if somebody tries to log in, they will not be able to log in as the root user, and they will not be able to use the password. So that was the objective of this video. The objective was very clear, and it was to set up SSH authentication for our server. And the link to this post is in the description, so you don't have to worry about that. You can just come, you can even come here on my site and you can search for this post if the link is not there, but I'll make sure I add it for you. So that's it for this video. Make sure you follow everything as I've done it, because if you don't, you may end up making various mistakes that will have serious ramifications, such as you not being able to log into your server. So make sure you follow everything step by step. Just be patient and follow along step by step. These things are very easy once you get used to doing them. Okay, so just make sure that you follow along step by step. And that's it for this video. In the next, we're going to do the final thing, and the final thing is creating a swap file in our server, and I'm just going to use this. Okay, this is for Debian, but I'm just going to use this because it's still going to work on Ubuntu. So that's the last thing that we're going to do before we install our control panel. After that, we're going to install the control panel, and we'll see how to add websites and how to run your website, work with DNS, and so on. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in another one. A swap file is a file that is used as memory when the actual physical memory runs out on your server. So if you have a low memory VPS, you definitely need to create a swap file. So on a VPS, you don't have access to your disks, and therefore a swap file is the next best thing. You can also create a swap disk, but of course we want to create a swap file since we are on a VPS. If you are using Contabo, you can see that you get 8 GB of RAM for that, and you get 16 for that. So you can choose whichever plan you want, and you see that you probably won't need the swap file, but I'm just doing this for the benefit of people who are following on a different VPS. Maybe you're using Vultr or DigitalOcean, then in that case you probably need to add a swap file so that you can have memory that will be used in case your server runs out of memory. Just as a caution to anybody following along, that this is how it should be. This image, you see this image, this is how it should be. My website was stripping out these double hyphens. Okay, these are double hyphens. If you need to follow along, you'll need to know that. So let's just copy this. I'll just copy this only, sudo swap on. So the link to this page is in the description. You don't need to type this stuff. So I will paste that in there, sudo swap on, and that's hyphen show. And you can see, okay, we do have a swap file already. So you can see Ubuntu on Contabo has already created a swap file for us. So this means that we do have a swap file. So we can just create another one, and I'm just creating this for the benefit of people that want to see how to create a swap file on their VPS if they don't already have one. So the first thing, this was just to see if we do have a swap file, and remember, these are 2 hyphens. Okay, step 1, we're going to create the file that will be used for swapping. Okay, so we need to create a file and allocate a size to that file. So I'll just copy these things without changing anything. I will just paste that in there, enter. Okay, now this file has been created. You can do ls-la, and you're going to see that in your root directory, there's a file called my swap file. Explaining it, once again, that's the name of the file, okay? So you can change the name to whatever. You can call it my swap file. You can call it the new swap file. You can even call it file py, whatever you want to call it. And this is going to allocate the size for the file. So this is going to allocate 2 GB to this file. If you want to allocate 1 GB, just put 1 GB. If you want to allocate 4, put 4 GB. Okay, we've created the file and allocated that. Now the next step is we need to change the permissions for the file that we've created. So I'm just going to do that. And remember that you can create it inside another folder if you want to. That's okay. If you want to put it inside of another folder, that's okay. You can see here it is in the root directory. So let us change the permissions for the file. And once we change the permissions, we need to now make it a swap file, and we also need to turn the swap on. So this is going to make it, and this is going to make the file a swap file, and this is going to turn it on, swap on. So I'm just going to do this in one line. Copy. I will paste that and then enter. And now our swap is on. Now the swap is on, yes, but if we restart the server, it's not going to recognize the swap file. So what we need to do is we need to add it inside of this file. And inside of this file, we're going to add that so that we can let the system know that that is a swap file that should be restarted with the system. So we're going to copy that. So any memory that we have, they're usually listed inside of this FS tab. And this is the one that usually tells the system when it restarts that these are the memories that we currently have. So let's just bring our cursor down, and we need to copy this. So if you change the name of the file or you change its location, make sure that is reflected in this. So for me, I'm just copying what is already here so that I don't have to type. Paste, and then I'll do Control X to exit out of Nano, and then yes, I'll enter Y because I want to accept the changes, and then I will press enter to accept the changes. Now, if I restart the system, our swap file will be there, okay? And even if I do sudo swap on show, remember sudo swap on show has 2 hyphens. Oh, but for me, let me just do sudo free dash h. This is going to show me all the memory that is available for me to use. So let's come back here. Sudo free dash h. This is going to show us all the memory that is available, and you can see our memory is that, and we still have that available memory. And our swap file, if you remember, for my server, I already had 2 GB of swap file, and I also created another 2 GB of a swap file. So I have a total of 4 GB of swap memory. That's why you can see I have 4 GB of swap memory, and it is unused because it is only used when this one runs out. As soon as you run out of memory, they will use your swap file. Your applications will all be moved to your swap memory. Okay, so that's what it's all about. So in this video, you've seen how you can create a swap file on Ubuntu, even though I used this guide that clearly states is for Debian. Even on CentOS, if you want to, even on Alma Linux, you can just follow this and it's going to create the swap file the same way. All right, so that's it for this part. In the next video, we're going to see how to install our control panel. And then once we do that, we'll see how we can work with DNS and then add websites. And we're going to see how we can add a WordPress website. We're going to see how you can change your host name on your server, on your Ubuntu server, and you can follow the same steps for Debian if you are using Debian. But I will be doing this on Ubuntu because this server is an Ubuntu 2004 LTS. So I will see you in that next video when we change the server host name. In this video, we are going to change the server host name, and I will be using Contabo for this example. If you're also using Contabo and you come here under reverse DNS management and interested in this IP, you'll see that the reverse PTR record is that, and we want to change this to something else that we can use. So you should definitely use an actual domain, and the domain should be one where your panel is installed. So if you're installing a control panel like STSCP Cyber Panel, it should give the domain for where it is installed there. To change the hostname on Ubuntu or Debian, I have this post here. You can just follow this post, and I will leave the link in the description. For the control panel, I will install it in a subdomain, panel1.javascriptbear.com. I want to change my hostname to that. the panel will be installed in a subdomain. You can install it in a full domain if you want to, but I choose to use a subdomain. Come back here and you can see this is currently the first part of our host name. So we want to change that. Let's first of all see our host name. To check your host name, you can just do host name, and that is our full host name, and we want to change it. So if you come here, you can change the host name. You'll need to edit it there. I want to change my host name to panel1 dot panel1.javascriptpair.com. So this is going to be my host name. So let's come back to the post, and I just need to edit this file and change it there. So if you go into this file, if you go into the hostname file, we'll see that our hostname is listed there and we can change it. If we come back to where we're logged into our server, make sure you've logged into your server. So I'm going to paste that in there. And you can see that's our host name. So the first thing I need to do is I need to remove this and replace it with this. So I'm going to copy this entire thing, and then I can just use my cursor. I'll just press delete and delete everything in there. The name of my server, I'll delete that there, and then I can paste. So if you want to paste here, and I'm using Git Bash, you can use Shift Insert to paste. If you're using Putty, you'll just right click to paste. If you're on terminal, I think it's Control Shift V. So just paste the way that your command line tool will allow you. So for me, I'll do Shift Insert. Then I will close Nano by doing Control X, and then accept the changes. Y to accept the changes, and then press Enter to exit out of Nano. So the next thing is to change this in our hosts file. So we've changed it in the host name. So the server knows the host name is that, the one we've added, but we need to reflect that in the system. So to do that, we need to change something in our hosts file. So copy, paste, enter, and you can see this is the one we need to change. Okay. And we also need to change that. Okay. So every instance of the old host name, we're going to change that with the new host name. And let's just come back and copy this. Copy the new host name, and we're changing this on Ubuntu, but this is going to work for you even if you're on Debian. So let me find my cursor, and I will just move my cursor to that point, and let me delete this name. And then I will add a space there, Shift Insert to paste. And then for this other one, since I'm using a subdomain, the first part of my host name will be what is here. But if you're using a full domain, just use the full name of your domain. And then let's scroll down again for IPv6. For IPv6, let's scroll down, and we're going to delete this one as well. And then we paste the new one. And for this side, it will be panel1. So as I've said, for the part where I've put panel1, if you're not using a subdomain, just put the full domain name there as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So I'll do Control X, Y, enter. We need to restart the server. There we go. Now we're logged in. So now, the last time we checked for the hostname, it brought that. Let's see what it brings this time round. And I'm just going to clear the screen. There you go. Your hostname has been changed. So that's how you can change your hostname on Ubuntu, Debian, or any Linux server. But since we are on Contabo, I'm also going to need to change this inside of my Contabo dashboard. So let me come back into, and you can see as soon as we change it, it's changed it here as well. Let's go and change it inside of Contabo as well. So here in Contabo, I will click there to edit, and I will update this one as well. Paste that. Okay, that's not the one. I will paste it in there, and then I will save. This one as well, you can change the second one for the IPv6 if you've enabled IPv6. So your reverse DNS records have been changed on Contabo, and you can just add them as well on Cloudflare. So in this video, you've seen how you can change the host name for your server, and I was using Ubuntu as an example, but you can do this on Debian. You can even try it on other Linux distributions. I'm sure the process should be the same. So change the host name into the domain name or the subdomain name that you're going to use for installing your control panel. Maybe you want to install CyberPanel, HTTP, Virtual Min. You need to change the host name to match that, and that's why I was doing this. So in the next video, I'm going to install my control panel. So I will see you in that video. In this video, I want to install HTTP. You have watched the previous videos how I was setting up Ubuntu to run HTTP. If you want to use Debian, you can look at the playlist for Debian. I will add the videos for Debian. If you want to use Debian, just watch the previous videos and you're going to see how to set up your server before installing HTTP. HTTP is a free control panel. So you're wondering why I'm here on Cloudflare. So I'm going to be using Cloudflare for my DNS records. So if you want to use Cloudflare, just log into Cloudflare, add your domain, and then you go into DNS and you can change the DNS records there. So I'm just going to click here because I want to edit this. I will be installing HTTP in this subdomain, and in the last video you saw how to change your server host name. Make sure your server host name is the same as the domain or the subdomain where you want to install HTTP. I will have to change these records. First of all, let me add my IP address there, paste and save. And panel 1, of course, this is where I will be installing HTTP. So as of now, even if I visit this domain, it's just going to give me a Cloudflare error because there's nothing on my server. But once we install HTTP, you're going to see it brings us something there. So let's just do this as an example. Go to JavaScript pair. You'll see it brings this error. But as soon as we have installed HTTP, it's going to bring up Nginx as our homepage. All right, so the first part, we have set up our DNS. If you don't have a Cloudflare account, create one, add your website, and then add the A records for that, and then you can add this as the CNAME records. So of course, this would be different for you. But the first part we've done, we've added our DNS records. So even if we go to this website, once we install HTTP, there will be something there that we can see. So the next step is for us to install HTTP. So let me come in here, and I will just search for a generation script. I don't want to type everything, so I'm just going to generate the script, and I can search for HTTP. So I hope when I search for this, I'm going to get something. So let me try this one from GitHub and see which one this is. Let's go there and see. Okay, so I can install this. So it's important to note that I will not be installing Apache. I will be using PHP FPM and Nginx. However, if you want to install Apache, it's okay. Nothing will change in this tutorial, even if you install Apache. But for me, I usually prefer to use Nginx and PHP FPM. If I want to run any PHP script like WordPress or anything that is PHP related, I just prefer to use Nginx instead of Apache. So PHP FPM, indeed. Install multi-PHP. You probably want to install multiple versions of PHP. So if you want to run older scripts, you can choose a different version of PHP to run. And then for this, I'll use this. This is just for FTP. Named is used for DNS. So if you want to use DNS on your HTTP, maybe you want to use your actual website as your DNS provider, then you need to install named, and I will just install it. And at some point, maybe I may do a tutorial on how you can use your own websites, your own domain as the DNS providers. I may do that or not. MySQL, database do you want to install? I want to run WordPress, so I'm going to use MySQL. And of course, I need XIM for mail. And you can install this. I'll just leave the rest checked. All this, I'll just leave them checked. You can also install that. If you're going to host websites for other people, you should probably install that. I want to force it because if you don't force it, it's probably going to fail. The installation will fail and I don't want it to fail. So interactive, yes, I want it to ask me things. And then the host name, of course, I want to set a host name. And the host name, in the last video, I showed you how to change the host name on your server. So make sure that you change your server host name to the domain or the subdomain where you want to install your control panel. So I'm going to set my host name and I will set my host name there. And then the email that you want to set as the admin email, add that there. And then a password, you can set a password or you can use the default password. So just write the password that you want there. And I'm just going to use a sample of. And then the default language, of course, you can choose a different language. Just look at the available languages and see which one is in your domain. So I'll just leave that like that. And then I will proceed. Okay, so here's my installation script. Let's go ahead and install. So let's go back to our server. Copy it. Paste and then enter. The script has been downloaded. The next step is for us to install everything we need for our HTTP. So I'm going to select that and then copy. Then I can find them there. Now, one thing I think I should change here is the port. Now, if you want to use Cloudflare, Cloudflare supports various ports. Okay, so those ports you should probably check on Cloudflare ports. Check on Google to find out the ports that are supported, okay? And you can use one of those ports on your HTTP instead of using the default. So, of course, you want to use the HTTP ports. And for this, I can just use 2053. So I'm going to come here and you can change the port there. Or since I already have the script, you know what? Let me just change the port here. 2053. So if you want to use Cloudflare to even access your backend, then you can do that here. And then I'm just going to proceed and I will copy this one more time. Copy, and let's go back to our terminal window. And here now I have to do sudo, and then I will paste in my script in there and press enter and just wait. Okay, press enter and then enter my user password, my SSH user password. And the next thing you have to do now is just wait. There's nothing you can do but wait. Just wait for the installation to continue. It's going to install everything it needs. HTTP is going to install everything it needs. And then once it is done, it's going to give you the access links for HTTP admin dashboard. And then after that, we'll see how we can add sites and how to use HTTP. You can see the installation of things that are going to happen. So we're going to install Nginx as the web server. And you remember I did not choose Apache, but you can also install Apache. It will also get installed along with Nginx, and you can use that as a reverse proxy. And I chose multi-PHP, bind. This is for DNS, XIM is for mail, Devcot is also for mail, and then MariaDB, of course, you know what that is. And then that is for FTP if you want to access FTP, and then firewall. All these are firewall and also fail to burn to limit various access options on your server. Would you like to continue with the installation? Absolutely. So just type Y to continue. So it's going to install everything it needs. Okay, everything that HTTP needs to run, it's going to install it. And once that is done, we're going to come back and we're going to see how we can access our panel. So I will see you once the installation is complete, or if it asks me to do anything here. There you go. HTTP is now successfully installed on your server. If everything went okay, then you will get this message of a successful installation. So these are the access details for your server. That's the link to your server. So since I already added the site on Cloudflare, I can actually access it using my domain, using my control panel domain once I set it up on HTTP. But for now, we can just use the IP address. So admin URL, copy that. And by default, the username is admin and the password is what you set. The link, and it will tell you that your connection is not private. And this is because the certificate that is being used is a self-signed certificate, which is not recognized by the browser in the browser database of SSLs. So you can just click here under advanced and then you click to proceed. The username by default is admin. By default is admin. So next, and then enter the password. And then login. There you go. Now you're logged into your HTTP control panel and you can add websites and host as many websites as you want to on your control panel. So in the next video, we're going to do an overview. I'm going to do an overview of Hestia control panel just so you can get an idea of what you can do within your control panel and you can know what everything is used for within the panel. So I'm going to do that in the next video. But for now, let me just do a recap of what we've done. So in this video, we have installed HTTP. So the most important thing is for you to set up your server. All the videos in this HTTP control panel tutorial will be in a playlist. So if you're watching this video outside of a playlist, make sure you go to the correct playlist and you watch the videos consecutively in that playlist. And I did install HTTP on Ubuntu, but you can install it on Debian as well. So if you want to use Debian, I do have another playlist that I'm going to set up with some of the old server tutorial videos, and you can use that to set up your server and then finally install HTTP. And if you want to use Ubuntu, you've seen how you can set up your Ubuntu server step by step, and I'm going to create that playlist as well for Ubuntu. If you want to install HTTP on Ubuntu 20.04, which is the latest LTS version of Ubuntu. Step by step, what you need to do, first of all, set up your server, and then after that, install HTTP. And you also saw how you can add your DNS records on Cloudflare. So now if we go to Cloudflare and we check this domain, you'll see that now there is something here. And you can see now we have success. This is because HTTP has been installed and we can add our site. Right now we don't have any websites on the server except for the main domain, the main panel. Even this, you can even use this to access your control panel. So if you go to that /2053, since I already set up the DNS records in Cloudflare, I should be able to. So this is because we haven't added SSL for it. But once we add SSL, you can just click on it and you can generate a let's encrypt SSL. And once you do that, if you go to if you go to the HTTPS version of this website, you will be redirected to Hestia. That's something you can do here. Once you enable SSL for this domain, it automatically took the SSL from Cloudflare. Let's look at that and you'll see it's using the SSL from Cloudflare because we set up the DNS on Cloudflare. So that's it for this video. In the next one, let's just do an overview of Hestia CP to see what each of these links, each of these tabs do. I'll see you in the next video. Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, let's do an overview of Hestia CP. So in the last video, you saw how to install Hestia CP. Now let's do an overview. So first of all, to log in, if you want to log in, just go to your IP address and then you add the port that you set up. You did see how I changed my port in the installation process. If you didn't watch the installation process, just go back and watch that video. Here you see we have users. This will list the users in your account. Right now I'm using the admin user, which is the default user in your control panel. And then we have web. This is where you will be adding the different websites that you want to run on your Hestia control panel. And you're going to see how to do that in a moment. DNS. So I will not be working with DNS on Hestia CP, but I installed it nonetheless. I'm just going to use Cloudflare for all my DNS records. But if you want to use Hestia CP, you can also do that as well. there's a video I did about child name servers on Cyberpanel, and if you watch that video, you're going to see exactly how to do it, and it's the same process on HTTP. And then for mail, this is where you're going to see everything about mail. You can create mail, you can see the mail, the different accounts that you have, the different mail domains, you can set them up there. And then databases, you can set up databases, you can change passwords for your databases, users, and so on. All that can be created here. And then cron, you can set up cron, and you can see any cron jobs that are available currently. And then you can also set up a backup and download the backup. And if you want to look at your server details, just come here and you're going to see all the details for your server, all the processes, the jobs that are running. You can see all these are currently running. I installed multi-PHP, and that's why I have all these PHP versions running here. And you can also see that I have Nginx and I don't have Apache. So if you watch this tutorial from the beginning, I said I didn't want to install Apache. I was going to use Nginx and PHP FPM. So what else is here? If you want to change any settings about your user, just click there. If you want to log out, you can click there to log out. The next thing, let's see how you can add a website. So the first thing, before you add a website, make sure that you take your IP address and you create different records. You come here to Cloudflare. If you want to use Cloudflare, that is, add your site here, add your domain to Cloudflare, and then you can add the different records. Just come here under DNS on Cloudflare and add the different records. You can see here I already have one for my control panel, and all the details, the different subdomains, you can set them up here on Cloudflare. Okay, you can see I have an A record, I do have a CNAME for www, and we're going to need that if you want to set up a website on HTTP. So let's see that. Let me just give you an overview of how you can set up a new website on HTTP. So I'll copy that, and let me just come back here and I will go into web. So by the time you're watching this tutorial, I will have deleted this server, so you probably won't get access to any of these IP addresses or any of these links. So if you want to add a website here, maybe you want to host a new website, just click there on add web domain. And actually, this is something that I should cover. You can see you're being told create a standard user account before adding web domains. So I'm just doing this as a sample, but what you should do first of all is come here under users, and then you set up a new user. Okay, so you need to come here and add a user and use that user to set up all your websites or different websites. You can have different users for different websites. Just try not to use the admin user. I'm using the admin just because I don't want to set up all these accounts, but you can set this up if you want to. Just click there on users and look at the admin user. So it is strongly recommended that you create a standard user. Make sure you do that as I've shown you. And for me, I'm just going to click on continue, which is not advised. This is not secure. What you need to do is create a different account that will have your websites, or you can even have different users for different websites. So there I will add a domain. So make sure once you create that user, you log in as that user, and then you use that specific user to set up your websites. That is for security purposes. So for this, I'll just click on create DNS zones, and this is just to give me the different records that I may need to copy from here and then add them to Cloudflare. So I will enable them. If you want to send and receive mail, just click on enable mail for this domain. That's all you need to change. If you have other IP addresses, they can be listed here. Maybe you bought a different IP from Contabo, it will be listed here, and you can set up different sites on different IPs. So I'm just going to click there to save this site. Okay, once the website has been created, you can change different settings. That's just because there's a space before this. So I'll just remove the space. And then once again, I'll click there on create DNS records, and then create, and then enable mail. And then I will save. And now you can see that our domain that has been created successfully. If you look here, you'll see that we have two websites, and we also have one zone. So we have a zone for this domain that we created, and we have 15 records, and you can copy these records into Cloudflare. So I'll just come here under web, and you're going to see how you can install your website on this, or you can just upload one. So for every website that you create, you can see you have this. You can visit the site, you can edit the settings for the site, you can access the logs for the site, and you can suspend it or even delete it if you don't need it anymore. So let's click on it once again, and we're going to enable Let's Encrypt for this website. So I'm just going to click on it. And before you try to enable Let's Encrypt, ensure that you have set up your A records and you have a www record as well. Okay, so you need the A record and the www record as well. So you can set that as a CNAME. You can also set it up as an A record. If I want to host WordPress on this website, I can change various things here. If I come here, you can enable web statistics. Of course, you want to see the visits for the site, and you can enable statistics authorizations, and you can enable domain redirection if you want to redirect this domain somehow. Maybe you want to redirect redirect visitors to www, redirect all visitors to that. You can do that as well. And then you can enable SSL. So use Let's Encrypt to enable SSL. And then enable automatic HTTPS redirection. That's going to redirect all traffic to your HTTPS domain. You can enable strict, and most of the times you definitely want to do that. Just enable HTTP strict because most browsers nowadays support that. And then here under advanced, you can change various settings. Just click on advanced and you can choose a template for Nginx. So if you want to run WordPress, you'll need to choose the WordPress template down there. And definitely, most definitely, you want to enable fast CGI. And with fast CGI, your website is going to load much faster. The cache is going to get stored on your server, and it's going to reduce the server load generally. So what you can do is you can increase this time. Once you know how often you usually update your website, you can even make this 1 day. You can make it 1 day if you want to, because 2 minutes, that's too short. And then backend template PHP FPM. Which version of PHP do you want to run? If you want to run a specific version, you can run that. WordPress, you can try PHP 8 for WordPress. WordPress already supports PHP 8. And then you can create a custom document root. So you can change the document root where this will be. And if you go to the file manager, we're going to go there in a moment. If you go to the file manager, then you'll see it wherever you decide to put it. So if you want to change the directory, you can just change the directory there, but I don't want to change that. I'll just use the default as it is. And then you can create FTP accounts for this. Maybe you want to give access to different people, then you can create users and then send these details to those users so that they can log into the website and set it up. So once you've changed and added all the settings that you want to add, the next thing that you want to do is you want to come up here and you want to click on save. We just need to give it some time for Let's Encrypt to give us a new certificate. This is not secure, but if I try to reload it, it should redirect us to HTTPS. Okay, so the website is there. Now you can add whatever you want in your site. So if you come here under web, you can change the different settings again if you want to. Let's go into files. Maybe you want to update, maybe you want to install WordPress here. You can install WordPress manually. Okay, so if you do want to install WordPress and you know how to install WordPress manually, back in the day when we used to install it manually, right? Without the fast installation, without the automatic installation that we have on most web hosts nowadays, we just used to bring the files into the public HTML here, and then you extract the WordPress files inside there. And then once you extract the files inside here, so remember you go into web, into the domain you want to go to, and then into public HTML, and then you can bring in the files, the WordPress files, just extract all of them inside here. If you want to exit to control panel, you can exit back to the control panel. And once you're here, so for you to install WordPress, let's assume that you've gone under files and you've extracted the WordPress files. The next step is for you to create a database, or you can do this before you even upload the files. So if you go into your DB, you can create a new database. You can add a database. Make sure that you're using this with a new user that is not the admin user. The admin user is default on every Hestia control panel. So make sure that you don't use it for setting up your sites and anything else that you need for your site. So we'll just continue. So what you're going to do is you're going to give the database a name. Let's just call it DB2. And remember that this usually takes the username first as a prefix. Okay, so the name for your database will be that, depending on the user that you're using. So copy the name from there, and then of course you want MySQL, that's the one we installed, and then the username for the user, the username for the database, you can set up a new one. And just remember that this is the user now, this entire thing. The prefix will be the username that you set up. So make sure it's something that's unique. The username that you set up, make it unique. Right now we're using the admin user, which is not advised. And then for the password, it will just be the password that you set here. So your password must have strong characters. Okay, once you do that, you can change all these other details if you want to change these details about your database. And once you set up your database with all the settings, just click there to save, and you can connect your database successfully when installing WordPress. And if you want to visit your database and maybe import a database, you can go to phpMyAdmin, which is installed by default. So if you want to visit phpMyAdmin, just visit it through the domain that you set up. Okay, so visit it through that domain. If it doesn't work, you can try to figure out what the issue is. Before I end the video, I'm trying to figure out what else will be important for you here. Okay, let's go into DNS. Now here under DNS, you can see we do have one DNS zone for that. So you can look at the records for this, and then you can add those records on Cloudflare. You can just copy them one at a time and add them on Cloudflare if you're using Cloudflare. This is a text record, so you can copy it and add it to Cloudflare. Okay, just copy them as they are and then add them to Cloudflare. Let's see what else is important here before I end the video. Let's go into backups. It's important to have backups. So in this HTTP overview, let's look at backups. You can see we've already set up a new backup here, and you can even set up a new backup. Just create a backup. It's going to take a little bit, but my server is currently very small, so this is not really going to take long. So if this was my backup, I can download it. You can download it and keep it on your computer, or you can download it and move it to a different server. If maybe you're moving from one VPS to another, you can just download this, and then once you've set up a new server, then you can just import it. So to import, just Google how to import a database. You can do it very easily. Just upload it. Once you've set up your server like this, you can just upload it even via FTP, and then move it appropriately via SSH, and then you'll just run the backup. And you can Google how to do that. There is a very simple one line for how to do it on HTTP documentation. So just Google how to do that if you're moving from one server to another. So we've looked at DB. Let's look at mail. After we look at mail, we're going to see how we can maybe change various settings. Maybe you want to change something in PHP config file, or you want to change something in Nginx. We're going to see how you can do that. So here, the next step is domain. Maybe you want to add mails for this. You can add a mail domain here. So let's click there, add a mail domain. And of course, it is strongly recommended that you use a different user. So you can add a mail domain. Let's go back. For that, let's click on this. If you want to add an account, just click on the domain, and then you can add an account, and you can even edit the mail domain. Mail domain is the domain, like in this case, example.com. Once you add the mail domain, you can add the different mail accounts just like that. So the next step, let's look at how you can change different settings here. So let's go into our server. So most of this you'll need to do using the admin account. So if you want to restart the server, you can do that. You can look at your server logs. You can see if there are any updates, and you can also monitor the task to see how your resources are being used. You can also configure different things here. Maybe you want to configure all these different items on your server. Just click on whichever, all these items, anything that you want to change here. You can just click maybe web server. You want to edit Nginx. Click there, and you can configure Nginx, backend server, PHP. You can configure that to change all these settings, but some of this you can just change them through here. So maybe you want to change something in Nginx. You can just come here and you click on edit, and that's going to give you, that's going to bring you here, and you can change the different settings. Maybe you want to change the max body size. Maybe your server is crashing or timing out due to these times. You can increase the different times for this. You may want to increase this maybe to 90 seconds if you are experiencing problems whereby certain scripts are running out of time. So you can change that here. Then gzip, of course, you want to enable that. And then if you want to change the actual settings here, you can just click on advanced down here, and you'll be able to click on that. You'll be able to change the settings here. And then once you do that, you can just click on save, and it's going to restart Nginx. So let's go back, and if you want to configure, so depending on the PHP version that you're using, maybe you're using PHP 8, you can also configure the settings for that. And it's just the same thing here. You may need to change max execution time for various scripts. You may need to increase memory. Anything that you need to do here, you can just come in here and change them. And if you want to do them on the actual PHP INI file, you can also do that here. So that's just an overview of HTTP, and that's pretty much it for this video. So just remember, if you do want to add another website, you can just come in here, click on web, add another website, add the DNS records on Cloudflare, and that's going to work for you. So if you're using a subdomain and you want to add SSL, you can see mine doesn't have SSL yet. Make sure that on Cloudflare you add another one like that, okay? www.panel1. So that's required for SSL. You need the www version and the actual A record for that. I hope you understand what I mean, okay? A record for the main domain is that, and then I also have a www record for it, and then for this subdomain I also need a www version for it, and you just add it like that, www.panel1. And then you add it as a CNAME record for that. So I hope you understand this, okay? I've done videos about this in the past many times. That's why I'm going fast over this. You can find those videos, especially in the CyberPanel tutorial. Just look at the DNS videos. You'll learn a lot there. So if you want to add another website, make sure you add the records there. If you want to reduce the server load on your server, just use Cloudflare instead of using your server for DNS. So for this, let's enable SSL, and we want to redirect people to the non-www record. And of course, I'm going to use Let's Encrypt. So as soon as I do that, I can just click on save. The certificate will be generated for me, and it will be visible on my front end. And if visitors visit my site, they will be redirected to the HTTPS version of my site. So this has been a slightly long video, but I wanted to do an overview of HTTP so that in case I take some time to create other videos, you will still find your way around and you will not be lost in using HTTP, regardless of how long it takes me to push out the next video. So I hope this video has been tremendously helpful to you. If you're lost, just go to Google and search for the problem that you're having. The HTTP forum is very helpful, and you can also find a lot of help on GitHub. Okay, so I hope this video will help you to find your way around HTTP, especially after following along with all the videos that we've done so far. Okay, I will do a file manager overview. Unfortunately, I don't have any websites here, so let me see if I can create a sample first. But just as a note, the file manager is there. If you open that, you'll see your files, and you can manage your files here. So your web files will be inside there. Right now you can see I don't have any website. Let me see if I can create a sample. I don't have any domains I can use. Let's just see if I can work with a sample. So this is just a sample panel. I'm not using it for anything. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'm just going to delete it. So I'll just continue. And I can add a sample domain. And I will just save. So the domain has been created. And now if I come here and let me try to refresh, and we see if the folder will be inside of the web directory. Okay, you can see now inside of the web directory there, we have this directory for your website. So this is where you can add your website files. your website files will be inside of the public HTML. You can see we have HTML. If you just click on it, you can edit it. Just by clicking on it, you can edit it. And once you're done editing it, you can save or close. If you want to create another file, you can just create there a new folder, a new file, whatever you want. Let's create something like PHP. You can click on it if you want to edit and add things inside there and save. And if you want to zip up, if you want to select a few things and maybe zip them up, you can zip them. If you want to delete, you can delete, copy, download, all this is there. You can select everything and zip them up. Where's zip? And zip them, create the zip, and you can download your zip file. So you can see this is a very simple file manager that you can use in Hestia CP. And once you're done with anything, you can just click exit to go back to the control panel. Select on the element and more features will be shown for you. You can download, copy, move, all that is there. If you want to go back to a different website, just click on web and you can go to whichever website you want to go to. So if you just click on this side for any file, you can do all these other things. You can unzip. Just because it's an archive, let's select a different file. And if I select a different file, I can download, view, copy, move, rename, and so on. You can copy the link and share the link if you want to do that. You can see it's a very simple file manager to use, and that's how to use the file manager for Hestia CP. If you compare this with Vesta, then you'll see that this is a great improvement from what we had. That's pretty much it for this tutorial. You've seen how you can work with Hestia, control panel, file manager. If you want to go back to the control panel, just click there, exit. I will delete this domain. Select there to delete it. And there we go. So that's how to use the Hestia CP file manager. Hi, welcome to this virtual main tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to set up Debian 10, and then once I set up Debian 10, I'm going to install virtual main, and then once I install virtual main, I'm going to show you how you can add a couple of WordPress sites on the virtual main server. So basically the tutorial is about how to set up Debian 10, install virtual main, and then how you can add multiple WordPress sites. So I will be using WordPress for this example. And most importantly, I'm going to use the virtual main lamp stack. Lamp. We're going to use the lamp stack. We're not going to install Apache. And for DNS, I'm going to use Cloudflare for DNS. So if you don't have a Cloudflare account, just go ahead and sign up. It's free. And this is what I'm going to use for DNS. I'm not going to use virtual main for the DNS, even though I'm going to install it. You can use it as well if you want to. And I do have a video about exactly how you can go about using any of these platforms, whether it's virtual main, CyberPanel, or whichever you want to use. You can use, there's a video I did about that, and that was specific to CyberPanel, but you can implement the same methods for virtual main. I'm going to use Valtra as my VPS of choice. If you don't have a Valtra account, go ahead and sign up. The link is in the description. So let's just get started in the next video. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy the first instance. And the first instance we're going to deploy is of Debian 10. And once we install Debian 10, I'm going to start setting up the server. So I'm going to use a post that I already created. So if you go to bizanosa.com, there is a Debian setup post that I did. And that's the one that I'm going to use. So I can just search. Let me just search for Debian 10. And this is a post that I want to use. So if I go to that post, Debian 10 initial server setup. So this is a post that I'm going to use for this setup. And what we're going to do is we're going to deploy the server. We're going to see how you can log in. And I'm not going to log in via party. For this specific tutorial, I will be using what's it called? It's called Git Bash. So if you don't have Git Bash installed, just go ahead and install it. You can download it from Git. Just go to Google, and I'm going to show you that when we get there. I'm going to use Git, but if you want to follow along with Party, you can follow along with this post, which has everything you need. including how to set up SSH. We're going to set up everything we need to set up. The only thing we're not going to do here is set up a firewall. We're going to let virtual main handle that for us. So all this we're going to set up, and let's just get started in the next video. And what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to deploy our first server. So you can follow along with any VPS, but I will be using Vultr. Vultr is very easy to use. The interface is very user-friendly. That's the only reason I'm using it. And the servers are also reliable. So that's why I'm using them, okay? Let's continue in the next step, and I'm going to set up the server in the next step. So let me deploy the server, and as I said, you can use Vultr or any VPS that you want to use. For me, I'm using Vultr. So if you want to deploy a server, just go there and deploy a new server. And I will be using Debian 10. So for this, you can use Cloud Compute or High Frequency. And I'm going to use Cloud Compute for this. This is 20% more expensive than that. And they say this is much faster than that. So I'm going to use, let me choose a location in America. And I'm going to choose a location. I will choose the Chicago data center. And then the operating system, I want to install Debian 10. So I'm going to click there, and then I will select Debian 10. And the server size, since I want to install virtual main, I want something that at least has 2 gigs of memory. So I'm going to choose this one for 10. I'm going to choose the $10 server, which has at least 2 gigs of memory. And of course, I will enable IPv6. I don't have any startup scripts, and I don't have the SSH key. I'm going to show you how you can set up the SSH key. And for the server hostname, I don't know which one to use. Let me log into Cloudflare and choose a domain that I can use. So for the server hostname, make sure you're using a name that is a fully qualified domain name. A fully qualified domain name, that's a name that you can access. If you add DNS records, it should be something that is accessible. You can use a full domain, or you can use a subdomain. So if you want to, you can use something like a full domain like that, or you can use a subdomain. But in my case, I want to use a subdomain. So I'm just going to add here panel dot. That is the host name, and this is going to get set up on Debian. If you want to change it, you can change the host name on Debian using the terminal, using the command line. You can do that, but just make sure you set it up now, since we're going to install virtual main, and our aim is to run a WordPress website, and we also want to be able to send mail. Make sure that you have a subdomain that is a fully qualified domain name. So I'm going to add that as my host name, and then for the label, you can use anything that you want. I'm just going to leave it as it is, and then let me just go up and see if there's anything I've missed, and everything is as I chose it. So I'm just going to click here, and I will deploy my server. So let it finish installing. It's going to take a while, not even more than 5 minutes. Let's just click on it to see if it's already given us an IP address. Okay, not active. Just give it a few minutes, and then we're going to come here, click on it, and we're going to get user root, and we're also going to get a password and an IP address, and you can use the IP address to log in. So let me click on it again, and you can see now it is ready. So by the time you're watching this, I will have removed this server. I will have destroyed the server. So don't try to access it in any way. So if you want to see your password, you can click there to see the password, and you can copy it. You can copy your IP address, and the user is root. So you can log in. If you want to log in via party, there is a guide here how you can log in via party. But I want to log in using git bash. So I'm on Windows. I'm doing this tutorial on Windows, and you can use git bash if you want that terminal-ish environment. So if you are on Linux, Mac, you can still follow along with me, because I will be using git bash. If you prefer to use party, the tutorial is here, how you can set up your server using party, and I'm going to follow some of those as well. So if you want to install git bash, just come to Google, and you're going to search for git. Let's just search for git. And you want to download it from Git SEM. Come here and click on downloads, and then download the one for Windows. So I'm on Windows. I'm going to download the one for Windows. I already have it installed. I'm just showing you what you can do. So once the download is complete, this is going to install everything we need. It's going to install git bash. It's going to install git, and it's also going to install git cmd. So anything that you want to do with any of those others, you can do, but we are only interested in git bash. So once you install it, just go and open it up, and we're going to use these details to log in. So I'm going to come here in my start menu, and I want to look for git bash. So open up git bash. And once you open git bash, the first thing you want to do is we want to try to log into our server. So I'm going to copy the IP address, and to log into the server, I will just write SSH. So this is the same way you log in on terminal if you're following along on terminal on Linux. So I'm using Windows, as I've said. So SSH and then the user root at my IP address. So on git bash, you can paste by doing shift insert and then enter. And it's going to ask me if I want to allow this server into my hosts file. And this is a new server. So I'm going to type yes, and then enter. And this has been added to your hosts file. So that means that it is a known server, a known address. And then I'm going to go back and I need to copy the root password. So I'm going to copy the root password, copy. And as I said, on git bash, you can paste by shift insert. You won't be able to see the password as you type it in or as you paste it in, but just press enter and you should be logged in. Right, there we go. So now we're logged into the server. We can try to update the server. We don't really need sudo at this point. So I'm just going to do apt update to check if there are any updates. Okay, all packages are up to date. So in the next video, let's come in and we're going to create a sudo user. So the sudo user is a secure way for you to use your SSH. Once we do that, we're going to disable the root user so that they won't be able to log into the server. And from then on, anything that we do, we're going to use the sudo command. So everything we want to do, sudo update, sudo apt install, all that, we're going to use sudo. And we're going to do that once we set up the sudo user. So that's what we're going to do next. So if you're still with me, this is where we had stopped. And what needs to happen now, we need to create a sudo user. So I will clear the screen. So we need to set up, as I've said, we need to set up a sudo user. And the sudo user is going to give us all the admin privileges that we need. So let's come back to the post here, and the link for this is in the description. If it's not there, just remind me and I'm going to add it. So you can also use party to log in if you want to. So let's add the user, and I'm going to give it a different name from that. Add user. Give the user a strong password. All right, password updated successfully. All these others, I can just press enter to skip all of that. All right. And then the next step is we want to make this user a sudo user. Okay. So we need to add them, give them the sudo privileges. Okay. So I'll copy that bit. And I'll paste that, and the user is that. So give it the user that you created. So this user now is an admin user. So if you do experience any problem, depending on the VPS that you're using, you may experience a problem whereby this command is not going to work. You're going to get told that sudo is not recognized. So what that means is that they have a very minimal install of Debian, and what you need to do is you need to install sudo. That's all you need to do. Just install sudo and then run the command again. All right, so the next step is for me to try and log in. So I'm going to try and log in with the new details for this guy, and then once we are able to log in and we are able to run sudo commands, I'm going to immediately disable the root user from logging into the server. I will open up a new Get Bash window, and then I want to get the IP address, and I want to log in SSH, new user, and then the password for the new user. Okay, there we go. The new user has logged in. So let's just test if we can run sudo commands. So I'm going to do sudo apt enter the password. So every time you use sudo for the first time, it's going to ask you for the password. And you can see we can run sudo commands. So that means that everything is working well. So we've already set up the new user. Now the next process is, let's see what's next here. The next process, I think we need to set up SSH, and I'm not going to set up firewall because I'm going to install virtual main, and virtual main is going to add all the ports that we need. The next thing is to set up SSH. So you can set up SSH using PuTTY, but I'm also going to show you how you can set it up using Git Bash. So using the Git Bash method on Windows, if you're on Windows, you can set up SSH using Git Bash or using PuTTY. If you are on a Mac or a Linux, you can use Git Bash. You can actually follow along with me using Git Bash, but I also do have a very intense tutorial here, very intensive, about how you can set up SSH on your Linux or Mac computer for your CentOS, RHEL, Debian. So this basically works on any Linux distribution. So just follow this if you want to set up your SSH key and be able to log in using SSH. And then once we do that, we're going to disable password authentication so that people can only log in using the SSH key. So if someone doesn't have the SSH key, they will not be able to access the server. And that's the next thing that we're going to do. I can set up this using Git Bash or PuTTY, but I do have a tutorial with Git Bash. So let me just look for that. Let me just search for Git Bash. And there we go. You can set up SSH using Git Bash. And this will also work for you. If you're on Windows and you're following along with Git Bash, you can use this one as well. So this is just the same way that you do it on Linux, all right? So this is what I'm going to do in the next video. I'm going to use Git Bash to set up SSH authentication. So I'm going to see you in that next part. If there's anything that is not working for you, just let me know and we'll see what the issue could be. In the last one, you saw how to set up a sudo user, an admin user with root privileges. So in this video, let's see how you can set up SSH authentication using Git Bash. So I'm on Windows, that's why I'm using Git Bash. But even if you're on Linux or you're on Mac, you can still follow along with this. But as I told you in the last video, there's another post that you can follow if you're on Mac. If you're on a Mac, just come down to this part where it says SSH key authentication. The link for this is in the description, and click there. And this is going to take you to this page. And on this page, you can set up SSH key for any Linux computer. So let's see how we can set up the same for our Debian, and I will be using Git Bash. So as I said, if you don't have Git Bash, you can download Git, and it's going to come with Git Bash, and I showed you that in a previous video. Just download Git, and it's going to come with Git Bash, Git CMD, and Git GUI. Just here are the steps of what we're going to do. Of course, you install Git, you can download Git, and then we'll generate the key pairs. So since I'm on Windows, the first thing I want to do is I want to go to my home directory, and on the home directory there is a .ssh folder, and inside of that folder I'm going to create another folder for this demonstration. So this method that I've illustrated in this video is a nice way for you to create multiple keys. So if you want to create multiple keys, this is a way for you to go. Okay, and let's go into my home directory. So however you want to get to your home directory, if you're on Windows, you can always get to your home directory. You can just go to local disk and inside of users, whichever user, that is your home directory. For me, that is also my home directory. Okay, so that is your home directory, and you can see for me, even hidden files, even hidden folders are being shown. So if your hidden folders are not being shown, just come here under view. I think it's under view, then you go into options and then view again, and hidden files and folders, show hidden files, and make sure you select that. If you don't have hidden folders showing up, make sure they are visible. So for me, I want to go here inside of SSH, and let me create another sample. Control Shift N, and I want to call this, let's call this virtual main. So you can see that this is a really nice way, because you can group all your different SSH keys in different folders. If you do any default method that most people show online, you won't be able to do this. So just make sure you follow either of my posts. It's going to show you how you can log in even once you create multiple SSH keys. My SSH keys that I'm going to generate are going to be inside here. Okay, so that's the first step. Make sure that you have this .ssh visible on your home directory in Windows. Okay, so that's the first step. I have created the folder, and you can see that here in this post, what I did is I did change directory. So CD is a way for you to change directory into this folder. So for me, I would have, if I was following this method, I would have to SSH into the virtual main folder that I've just created, and that's going to ensure that I don't have to add the path every time I want to do anything here. And even next time when you have to log in, you can CD into that folder so that you can get the private key for logging in. This is much easier to understand if I'm doing a demonstration. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm not going to CD, but you can CD, okay? You can change directory into that folder. And if you change directory, it simply means that anything else that you do after that, you don't have to put, like for instance, there, that is the name of my key. Here, if I did not CD into that folder, I would have to add this location, copy that, and then you put it before this, okay? And that's the way that I'm going to do it. But you can still follow along with this and do it like this. But I'm not going to CD, I'm just going to add the path. So let me copy that, and I want to put this inside of a TXT file. Let me put that inside of a TXT file so that I don't forget it. And there, so this simply means my home directory. So instead of adding the path to my home directory, that will replace that, my home directory. And what's the name of the folder that I've just created? It's called virtual main. So let me copy this as well, and I need the path. I just need this path, and this is where our keys are going to be. So you can see our keys will be stored inside here. So this is just the path to where my keys are. And now I can start following along with this tutorial. So the first step is, you can see if you CD, you don't need to add the path, but I'm going to have to add the path in my case. So I will copy all of this, and I will bring it into Notepad. And here in Notepad, as I said, you need to add the path. So if you CD into the folder, since you're on Windows, you don't need to add the path. That was just a way for me to save time. And this is the name of the key, virtual main / so this is the name of the key. The private key and the public key will have that name, and you can change this name. It doesn't have to be anything like this. I'm just calling it this, but you can call it whatever you want. Okay, I'll just call it first server, just to show you that you can change the name. So this SSH keygen is going to generate a key, and the type of key we want to generate is RSA, and the bytes we want to generate 4096. You can generate 2048. There is also 1024, but of course we want the highest, which is B 4096. So this is the bytes of the key we want to generate, and this is just a comment. You can add anything that you want there. It doesn't have to be an email. That's just a comment that I've added there. And then now this is going to be where the file is going to get stored. Okay, so if I copy this, and just remember that this is being done on your local computer. So I will open. So I was logged in here as root. I can just delete this. I can just close that. I don't need that. And then I'm logged in here as a new user. Remember, we don't need to do the, we are not doing this inside the server. We're doing this outside of the server on a Windows computer. Right now we're logged into the server. So let me log out, and I can just do exit to log out. And you can see that has logged me out. Now you want to do this on your computer, okay? So this is on my computer, not in my server. This is where we are going to generate the key, and I'm going to paste that in there. You need to copy that, and let me just clear this screen. I will paste in this, what is up? Let me copy that. Copy. And then I will come here, there, SSH keygen. And remember, since I did not CD into the folder, I have to add the entire path. And as I said, this just replaces the path to my home folder. Okay, so that is what that does. And I'm going to press enter to generate our key. Now, of course, you want to add a passphrase for your key. A passphrase is an extra security for your key. So even if somebody gets access to your key, they will not be able to use it without knowing your passphrase. So it is like a password for your key, and you're going to generate the key with a passphrase. So for me, I'm just going to use a simple passphrase here, but make sure you use a passphrase that you can remember. Make sure you add this. This is very important, okay? So you can see our key has been generated, and the path to our private key is that, and the path to our public key is that. So this is a public key, and as I said, this path right here can just be replaced. This entire path can just be replaced with a tilde. So I'm going to copy this. Let me just copy both of them. Copy, and I want to add them. I want to paste them down here because I'm going to need them. Of course, I don't want to copy the entire thing. So from here, we'll just replace that with the tilde. So this is the one without .pub. That is your private key. And then this other one, this is our public key. And this one as well, I don't want the entire path. I'm just going to replace that with the tilde. Now we've generated the key. The next step is for us to add it to our server. So just remember that I did CD in this post. I CD'd inside of that directory, but I did not CD. But I haven't CD in the video that I'm doing. So SSH copy ID, this is going to get used to copy our public key to our server. And this is how it should be right there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this. Let me copy this one. And then I'm going to replace all the elements that I need with the correct elements. So I'm going to come to the text file that I had here. And in this text file, let me just paste in that. Now SSH copy ID. Now we do want the identity of the key. This is just a flag to let the system know the identity of the key. So we want to copy this into our server. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to bring that path there, and I will paste it. Okay. And then the user, that is the username that I've been using on my server. That is the user that I've been using. And then the host, the IP address for my server, I can get that there. Paste. So this is going to add the key to our server. So it's very important to note that in this post, what I did is I CD'd into that folder. So that's why the path doesn't have the actual link. It just has the name of the key. Let's come back to git bash, and I'm going to paste in this, and this is going to try and install the key on our server. And we need to log in. This is a login for your server. All right, so the key has been added and you can see that the key was added successfully. Now try logging into the machine with the SSH key. Now to log into your server, let's come back here. To log into your server, you just need the identity of your key, and that's it, and the user you're logging in as. So I'm going to copy this and then I'm going to copy them, and then I'm going to replace things appropriately as I need to. So SSH into the user, and we have the user here, user plus IP address, copy, user plus the IP address, that's who we want to log in as. Remember to add the user, to add the SSH authentication for the sudo user you set up. And then we need the path to our private key. Okay, we added, in this part we did add the .pub key, which is a public key. Now we need to log in with our identity, with our private key. So the private key link is that. So I'm going to copy this, and remember the private key is the one that doesn't have .pub. .pub is the one which is public, which is your public key. Paste. So once you generate these keys, make sure you save them somewhere so that if you ever lose your computer, you can still get access to them. You can still get those keys and try to access your server using those keys, especially the private key. So I'm going to copy. So I'm going to copy that, and I will come back here and I'll just paste that in. This is just to try to log in. So enter the passphrase for the key. If you did set up a passphrase for these keys when you are setting them up, make sure that you enter that passphrase. There we go. Now we are logged into the server using our SSH keys. And before I even end the video, the next thing that I want to do is I want to disable root login and I want to disable password authentication. So I'm going to come down here and I need to go to the SSH configuration file, and I need to disable root login and I need to disable password authentication. So I want to do that in this video so I don't have to do it in the next video. Copy and enter the user password. So every time you use sudo, you need to enter the password for this user. All right. So I need to find root login, and I need to change this to no, and I also need to find password authentication, and I need to change that to no. So I'm going to do Control W on nano, and then I will paste and permit root login currently set to yes. We don't want the root user to be able to log in via SSH. So I'm going to change this one to no. And then the next step again is I need to disable password authentication. So if someone doesn't have access to our keys, they will not be able to log into our server, and that's what we want. We only want people to be able to log in using the key that we set up. So I'm going to paste that in there, enter, and then password authentication, you can see right now it is commented out. So I'm just going to uncomment it and then scroll all the way. And this, we want to make this no. And then I will do Control X, Y, enter, and that's going to save it. And I need to restart SSH. So I can just do sudo service SSH restart, and that's going to restart SSH. And now if somebody tries to log in as a root user, they will not be able to log in. If somebody tries to log in via password, they will not be able to log in. Right now, the only way to log into our server is using the keys that we've set up. So do yourself a favor and just copy that and save it somewhere so that you can use this to log into your server if you need to. Okay. So I've just recalled there's something that I've forgotten to do, and that is to change the permissions for our SSH key and the SSH folder. So what we need to do, let's see if the permission thing is here. Okay, the permission thing is here. So I can just change permission for the SSH folder and the authorized keys on your server. So you need to make sure that the keys are not easily accessible, and that's what we're doing here. So I'm just going to copy this, and this will change the permissions for that SSH folder, and for the key, it's going to give it a permission of 600, so no one else has access other than root. Okay, and once you do that, you'll have to change the ownership for that file to the new user that you've set up. Otherwise, you won't be able to log in. So I'm going to copy this, and I will paste that in there. So the permissions have been changed. Now the next thing is for you to give ownership. You need to change the owner of that file and everything inside of this directory to the user that you've set up. Otherwise, you will not be able to log in. This is very important. So I'm going to copy that, and I will put it there. So every instance of Joe, give it the group of the user you've set up, and the group will be that new user. So the group of Joe, user Joe, home directory Joe, and once you do this, you'll be able to log in. Copy, paste, and then enter. And now let's open up a new instance of Git Bash, and we need to try to log in. So that is our login. I will paste. All right, you can still log in. So that's everything that we needed to do in this video. And in this video, you have seen how you can set up SSH authentication using Git Bash. So you can follow the same steps. If you're on Linux or Mac, it's just basically the same steps. And if you don't want to use Git Bash, you can also use Putty and PuttyGen. And I do have a video for that. If you come here, you can do that. If you go to this link and you scroll somewhere down here, you can watch the video right there. This is a video for using Putty and PuttyGen for SSH keys. So if you get lost, make sure that you follow along, and everything is going to work out correct. Now the next step is in our setup. We've already set up SSH keys. The next step is going to be, let's create the swap file, and I can create a swap file for 2 or 3 GB. A swap file is just a memory location that will be used when memory runs out on our server. So that's something that you need to add, especially if you have a low memory VPS. And then once we do that, we're going to get to installing virtual main, and then we'll see how to use virtual main to set up WordPress. And as I said, I'm just using WordPress as a sample. If you want to use any other websites like Joomla, Magento, you'll see how you can do it. And please note that I will be installing the LAMP stack. I will not be using LAMP. I will not install Apache. I will just install Nginx and PHP, my admin, for virtual main. So that's it for this one. I will see you in the next one, and let's continue in the next one by creating a swap file. Okay, so let's add a swap file, and then we're going to install virtual main after that. So let's just check if we do have. Now please note that there's something wrong with my site, and when I add 2 hyphens, it does that. Okay, so this is how it's supposed to be. Okay, like in this screenshot. So make sure that you note that any place where there are 2 hyphens, you will get something like that. So that is wrong. So let's first of all just see if we do have a swap file on our VPS. So sudo swap on, we're going to create a swap file. Sudo swap on, and then -- show. So when you get the result like that, let me just do it again. when you get the result, no result, that means that there is no swap file. If there was one, it would have shown you the swap file. Now let's create a swap file, and I'm just going to give it the same names because I don't want to retype or edit anything. And I'm just going to also make it 2 GB. You can make it 3 GB, 4 GB if you want to. It depends on what you want right now, but don't make it too big if your memory is low. 2 GB is okay for me, so I'm going to use that. And now we need to change permissions for the swap file that we've created. So this is the name of the file. This is the name of the swap file. You can change the name if you want to use whatever name you want to. You can even store it somewhere else if you want to. Okay, you can see this is currently being stored under root, under the root directory. If you want to change it, you can change it. So I'm going to copy that, and this just changes permissions for that file so that it has root level permissions. And then once we do that, this is going to make it a swap file, and this is going to turn the swap on. So what I can do is I can just copy the entire thing. As I said, I don't want to edit anything. That's why I'm just using the same name, and that's going to save me time. So I'm pasting that in there, and this is going to turn the swap on. And you can see now we do have a swap file for 2 GB. So right now, if I do sudo swap on show, it's going to show you that we have a swap file called my swap file, and the size is 2 GB. So the next step is, so right now, if you were to restart the system, it's not going to recognize that swap file. So what I need to do again is I will just need to add it into the FS tab, file. And in this file, it lists the memory for the system so that when the system starts, it doesn't have to look for anything. Everything is already listed here. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put that in there. So inside of this file, we need to open that file, and then we need to put this in there. So if you change the name of the file or the location of the file, make sure that you update yours as you need to. So just scroll down, okay? And once you get here, you can just paste it. And once you do that, you can do Control X, Y, enter, and that's going to save the changes. And now you don't need to do anything else. If you do free -H to see the memory that you have, you can see we do have memory, our physical memory of 1.9 gigs, and we have the swap memory of that. Okay, so that's that, and that's pretty much it for this. In the next video, let's see how we can install virtual main, and that's the last thing that we need to do. We're going to install the lamp stack of virtual main, and once we do that, we're going to see how we can run WordPress in virtual main. And as I said, we will be using Nginx. So I'll see you in that one. Okay, finally we have to install. Finally, we get to the part where we install virtual main. So I'm just going to copy that from there. So make sure your server is set up by the time you get to this stage of installing virtual main. Make sure that you have already set up your server like we've done in the previous videos. So that is the most important part, setting up your server. So as I said, my website is having problems with this -- if I put -- in anything, it somehow strips out one. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this, but I need to edit this so that it can look like that with 2 dashes without any spaces, to let virtual main know that I want to install the lamp stack and I don't want to install lamp stack. So I'm going to paste that in there, and let me just come this way, delete that space there. I will add 2 hyphens, -- What is the problem here? Oh, it has come with some formatting. Let me just do that again. Remove any formatting there. Enter. And now virtual main is telling you that these are the supported operating systems, and we are going to install the LAMP stack for you. Okay, so it will require up to 650 MB of disk space. And do you want to continue? Absolutely yes. And then let's just let it run, install everything it needs. And then once everything is installed, we're going to come back here and we're going to see how we can add our first website. Now, before I even do that, let me come here. So the name of our host name was that. Let me go and add the DNS records for this on Cloudflare. And as I said, I will be using Cloudflare for my DNS. Okay. So I will add an A record, paste that in there with my IP address. So if you don't want to use Cloudflare for your DNS, I don't know, maybe just look through my videos. There's a video I did about how you can create child domains. So there, and I know right now the port used by virtual main is not supported by Cloudflare. So I'm going to disable proxy and I'm going to save. And I want to do the same for, and let me add a CNAME record for www. So I will add a CNAME record for www panel1, and the target is panel1 dot, I don't know whether I can add that. Is it possible to add that? Yeah, let's see if this is going to give me, and I will unproxy that, save. And yeah, you can see it as automatic. So you can use art to replace the domain name anywhere. Instead of typing the domain name, just type art and it's going to get replaced with that, with the domain name. So panel1, we've added that. And for this one as well, let's change the IP address, because I see I was using it for a different tutorial at some point and this IP address is no longer available. So I'm just going to paste in the new IP address for a record, and I'm going to install WordPress here. I'm going to show you how you can install WordPress on that. And www, instead of using an A record for www, let me use a CNAME record. So for www, let me add a CNAME record, CNAME for www, and the target is art. And that can be proxied because it will be accessible via the Cloudflare network. So these ones, I was probably using this for a different tutorial. So let me just delete them. JavaScript sample. I will delete the sample. This I was using for a different tutorial. This one as well, I was using for a different tutorial. So I'm just going to delete both of that. Now, is there anything else that I need to add here? There we have that. And you know what? I can also add mail. Let me add mail. Mail, is it an AMX? We already have that. So I think mail will just use this. It will automatically get added here. Okay. Now the reason that I have chosen to install bind, which is used for DNS, is because it will automatically create some of these records for me. And if those records are created, I can just copy them. Okay, if I ever need anything, I can just copy them from there. Let's just wait for it to finish installing, and then we're going to try and access. We're going to try and access it. For now, I've already changed the IP address to reflect. Let's just see if Nginx is already installed and set up. So you can see Nginx is already installed on our server. Let's just wait for it to finish installing, and then we're going to log into virtual main, and then we'll see how to do the initial initial setup. So this is a part that is very important. If you paused and you didn't watch this part about DNS, make sure you watch it, because this is how you'll make sure that your website is accessible on the internet. So I'm using Cloudflare, but you can use any DNS provider just in a similar way. Just add an A record for your website with your IP address, and for your panel, add the address there. If you want to be able to access this and you want to create a Let's Encrypt SSL, make sure you add www, and you add that record for that, a record for that as well. So you can also change the port. I'm going to change the port to something that is accessible via Cloudflare, and once I do that, you'll see that we can come in here and we can proxy it. For now, we won't be able to proxy any traffic through this because Cloudflare doesn't support the port that virtualmin uses. So let's come back and just give it time. Okay, so you can see installation is complete. Everything is accessible. So since I've already added the DNS records for this, I can access it using this. However, if you haven't added the DNS records, you can access virtualmin directly using your IP address. So I can access it using this link because I've added the DNS records on Cloudflare. So if I come back here, I can just go to that site and it should give me that warning. Okay, and this is just because this is a self-signed certificate. So I'm going to continue. So you can log in using any of the root users that you have on your server, and you do remember that we did set up a user called new user, and that's the one I'm going to log in as, new user. You can also log in using root with the credentials you got from here. So I'm going to log in as new user, and the password was, let me see, there we go. Okay, so now we are logged into virtualmin. And we need to do post-installation setup. Okay, now this is just some questions that you're going to get asked so that virtualmin can get set up with the best settings, the best preferences based on your server. So let's just click next to start this. Preload libraries. So for me, I'm going to choose no. Oh, it's only 40 MB, so I'm just going to click yes anyway. Run email domain lookup server. That I can choose no or yes. If you have like 2 gigs of memory, I mean, this is very little, so I can say yes to both of them. And then if your system is going to host enable virus scanning, keep using on-demand scanner. If you're going to use this to host websites maybe, and you have enough RAM, make sure you choose this because this is very RAM intensive, but at least it helps to scan your email, and that's very important if you're hosting other people's sites on virtualmin. The next step, run spam assassin. This one, of course, no. That one I'll choose no and then go next. But you can also choose yes if you're hosting other people's mail and you do have enough RAM. Run MySQL database server, absolutely. And run Postgres. No, I don't want to run Postgres. I just need MySQL. And once I do that, okay, now we can set the MySQL password. So let me just copy this. You never know where you might need this. So this is a MySQL password for the root user. I will click next. Let me put that in here. You never know when you'll use it. Copy it somewhere and save it. Okay, so what next here? MySQL is configured. MySQL configuration size. So I'll just choose small system. I'll choose a small system, but if you do have a lot of sites, especially WordPress, a big WordPress website, WooCommerce, you probably need to go with huge system. This is going to optimize MySQL for you. Okay, so for me, I'm just going to leave that but let me choose default. I don't know which one is default, but I'll just leave it as default, and then I'll go next. For DNS zones, primary DNS, okay, I'll choose that, but I'm not using my own website. I'm not using my own name servers, so it doesn't really matter because I'm using Cloudflare. So for